Okay, so we are back. Unfortunately, we do not have Asian Tofu or Gumi with us, the two members of Toronto Talonflames, but we are going to give them a draft grade and analysis. So first things first, they went with the Dragapult in the first round, followed that up with the Sylveon, the Lipard, Escavalier, Musharna, Malamar, Toxtricity, the Gmax version, the Kanto Dugtrio, Meryl, and the regular Colossal. So first things we got here with their synergy, we gave them a B plus. I really liked their Dragon Fairy Steel Core. I thought that they did a great job. It's actually one of the better ones that we've seen. One of the few Dragon Fairy Steel Core that we actually seen. Only two other teams, including Matt and myself, actually have one of those cores. Most teams opted for that Fire Water Grass. So because of that, they were able to get some good picks. I love the Sylveon Escavalier. Escavalier is an underrated pick. Very good in Trick Room. Has amazing coverage. Has decent bulk. The four times weakness to fire. Every Pokemon has weaknesses, but you have that super high attack stat. The super low speed stat to help it in Trick Room. I think it's going to do really well here. And then you pair that up with Musharna. Those are two Pokemon that, again, Matt and I are very familiar with. We ran that last year to very good success. Um, you have a lot of good synergy here, just in general, and then put that on there with Colossal in the very final round to have that Dragapult Colossal lead with that kind of threat that and that synergy there. Um, yeah, I mean we liked it a lot. We would have liked to see a a good Firewater Grass core, or at least some semblance of it, because they only have really Meryl out of any of those. We would have liked to see a couple other things. I think Matt was talking about a fighting type, I believe you had said, or a psychic type. But there were a couple other parts where,
Dark type especially. Well, they
uh,
have Malamar actually.
oh yes, a dark type, because Liepard is just prankster. We like to say. Um, but yeah, I mean, there were a couple things that we would have liked to see different on here, but overall, we liked where they went with their synergy. We gave them a B plus.
Threat level, we dropped them down to a B minus. Um, we feel that they do have some serious threats on this team. They're just maybe not as well supported as we would have liked. Dragapult's amazing. Everybody knows that an incredible Pokemon. Uh, uh, really great typing, amazing speed. That speed is probably its biggest strength. Sylveon has great damage output. Pixelate Hyper Voice has always been especially powerful. Lipard is the main kind of support here. Um, it's really dangerous with its ability to. It does have Fake Out. It can just toss around Thunder Waves. Um, it can use Fake Tears for some special attackers like that Toxtricity or Colossal if it gets set up, or if they want to run special Dragapult. Um, it has weather abilities or weather moves, rain dances on a day to counter opposing weather. There are a few tools that I sort of wish it got. It gets taunt and encore as well. Encore not as good in a Dynamax format, but it has a lot of threatening tools. And when you really don't know what it's going to do, it's hard to really make a correct and safe move in front of it. The Escavalier Musharna we felt was a really good Trick Room pair. We're a little bit biased. We did run those two on our draft last season, but they're they're especially big threats as a pair and as a Trick Room mode because of their speed stats. We've talked a bit about how a lot of base 30 Pokemon are sort of the baseline for Pokemon that really like operating inside of Trick Room. Musharna is base 29. It's going to speed tie with Hatterene, and Escavalier being base 20 speed is even better. It's gonna outspeed stuff like Gigalith inside of Trick Room as well, in addition to those base 30s. So that's going to be a really effective Trick Room mode against opposing Trick Room modes. Malamar can be threatening in its own right if you just kind of discount how threatening it is and just let it set up with those contrary superpowers. Um, Toxtricity can be a big threat if you get those rolls on its Gmax move and get paralysis on your opponent. Poison is okay too, but it's nothing compared to the strength of paralyzing opposing Pokemon. Um, and it has a lot of damage output potential, especially with its ability and its signature move Overdrive. Kanto Dugtrio, very fast, very threatening with Arena Trap. And then, of course, we have Colossal, which we know what Colossal does. Set it up with Steam Engine Weakness Policy. If your opponent lets you do that, it's going to run right through a lot of their team. But the problem is that all we're really seeing here is mostly just a bunch of attackers. We have Musharna as your Trick Room setter. I believe Malamar gets Trick Room as well, but it's not as reliable as a Trick Room setter. It can't function inside of Trick Room as well as Musharna can. Um, so Musharna is going to be kind of that support, but mostly just for a Scavalier. Uh, and its move pool can sometimes be a little bit shallow. And then, of course, you have Lipard, which is mainly helps for just shutting down your opponents with taunt and helping your sweepers sweep with stuff like Thunderwave and Fake Tears. If it got some more supporting moves like dual screens, maybe that would be a little nicer. But we're not seeing. I believe this is the only team in the league that has no redirection at all, and that happens to be a big problem, especially in a Dynamax format. They're not going to be able to properly. We're concerned they're not going to be able to properly protect their sweepers with enough support. It kind of just looks like they drafted a bunch of attackers, and they have a couple of mons that can help those attackers do what they do, but it's sort of a concern of ours that they might have a good first few turns after they Dynamax something, maybe even get a weakness policy strategy off, but it's supporting that Pokemon might be a bit of a concern. They do have potential to sweep through opposing teams. They do have potential to win games like that, but um, I'm curious to see how they're gonna try to support a lot of their big offensive threats. Their draft grade, we gave them a B. Dragapult was a fantastic first pick. It's very versatile, can do a lot of stuff. It can even fill a supporting role um, with stuff like screens, status, stuff like that. The only problem is that if you're using it for that, then you're missing out on Dragapult as a big offensive threat, and you spent a whole 90 points on it. So um, it might be able to patch up some of the stuff we talked about earlier with their lack of ability to support. But then of course you're using your S tier as a kind of a dedicated support on, and it also can't ally switch in this format. So that's kind of a bit of a hindrance to it in comparison to VGC Dragapult. But we do like the stuff that followed Dragapult in their draft order. The Dragapult, Sylveon, and Lipard, we do like those together, and they managed to grab a very valuable Steel type right after that. So they got that Fairy Dragon Steel core down very quickly, and then immediately after Escavalier, they picked up Musharna, which is a great Pokemon to pair with it. So their first 5 picks, as far as I'm concerned, are very, very solid. It's the only problem with them really is that those one of those picks, maybe in the Lipard slot, would have been a great chance to snag a redirection Pokemon. Um, Other than that, those first 5 slots are pretty solid. After that, a few picks, it started to get maybe somewhat questionable. I'm a little bit skeptical that they're really going to be able to do a lot with the Malamar. It's not a hugely sought after Pokemon. It was stuff like Malamar and probably Toxtricity is probably going to be there in later rounds, especially the Toxtricity, which the regular version and the Gmax version, they're not too different from one another. It's not a big deal if you have to settle for regular over Gmax. So I think they probably could have waited to get that. I think the Colossal pick at the very end was it was kind of a good play to wait to pick that at the end, but it was also kind of a bad play because they ended up missing out on the Gmax version. But they still got a Colossal. They still can do Colossal Dragapult stuff, and it's still going to be almost as powerful as the Gmax version. Even if you go for Rockfall instead of Volcalith, you'll still be picking up essentially a one-hit KO on a Focus Sash Pokemon because the Sand will take it out just the same as the Volcalith will if it's just down to 1 HP. Um, the But still, it's so regular Colossal is okay, um, but at the same time, they still could have picked up Gmax Colossal sort of late. It was drafted in, I believe, round 8 by LA New Wave. So I think it probably would have been worth it to pick it up in round 6 or 7, just to make sure you get that Gmax version. Um, but still, it kind of looks like they said, well, there's not a lot of other teams that may want to go for the Colossal stuff. We'll still get the regular one, even if the Gmax version gets picked up. So it's waiting to spend those points until the end and maybe getting some better stuff in the lower tiers like Escavalier and Musharna. Kind of a pro, kind of a con. It's a bit of a double-edged sword there.
Yeah, definitely. So we gave their overall team grade a B. We like this team a lot. We hate the fact that there's no redirection. We hit a lot of these teams really hard on, like for instance, the LA New Wave for only having one type of redirection because it's easier to plan for. And I think when you have a team like this, where the potential is there for them to be an A tier team, and you see something so basic like not having redirection on their draft, especially when stuff like Tangela is still available to at least help them out a little bit, you know, um, it's a little bit disappointing. But overall, we do like the team. I will say, to kind of add to your point from earlier, the for lack of a better word, the energy that they had to grab Gmax Toxtricity in the 7th by going, well, we prefer the Gmax version over the regular version, so let's make sure we grab that in the 7th. They should have had that energy with the Gmax Colossal. They should have had to been like, you know what, we can grab Toxtricity later. We can. It's more important that we get that Gmax version of the Colossal, because, or at least, in my opinion, get the one that you want. If you really wanted the regular one, go up and grab the regular one before LA New Wave grabs it in the 8th. Make sure that you properly support that Dragapult with the Colossal that you want. But I think waiting for it till the very last round, while you said was beneficial in some ways, because it's good that you obviously, when you only have 340 points spent by round 10, you're in a decent spot. You can still get an A tier, or you can still get any of the B. You can have leftover points. It's not going to be the end of the world. Team Pussy won with running less points or without hitting their 400 point total. So I think that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I really wish they would have just took that chance in the 7th round, like how they did with Toxtricity Gmax, and put that energy forth for the Colossal. I think that would have also boosted their draft grade up a little. So the combination of those two things, of, like, in our opinion, not really prioritizing the Colossal enough on your draft and not prioritizing redirection at all, are things that really bump it down in our eyes, and which is, like we said, it's a little bit disappointing because it is has the potential to be a very good team, but it still is it's a good team. It has a lot of threats on here. They have a lot of different modes that are more than threatening. So I think overall the B is a good spot for it. They have some glaring holes in it, but man, where they're strong, they're very strong. So I think they deserve some credit definitely for not being one of the more top heavy drafts in the league and having some good balance just overall.
Yeah. Going into the pros, they do have they have a very strong fast and slow mode. They can go fast with the offense. They have a very strong trick room mode. Obviously, Dragapult. It's kind of the in Sword and Shield. It's kind of the quintessential fast sweeper Pokemon. Um, so any fast mode that has a Dragapult on it is just going to be very good. Liepard paired with Dragapult is very powerful. Can help it sweep. Colossal adding another really strong option to that fast mode, especially if they can get that weakness policy steam engine set up safely. Um, it's it's very good. They have very good fast offensive options, and then of course the trick room mode is going to have a very good matchup against a lot of other trick room modes, specifically because of those speed stats that I talked about earlier, and because Escavalier has amazing coverage with the new moves that it gets in Generation 8.
Musharna's a threat too with hypnosis, gravity.
Yeah, if you can get that off successfully, it's a huge threat and actually serves to support the Escavalier really well. You can just blow something up with a big max move from Escavalier and just hypnosis the partner. And if both Pokemon are slower than yours, which is very likely because of how slow these Pokemon are, then that's a situation where you put a Pokemon to sleep and get another and KO the other one basically for free. That's absolutely huge. So this combination is going to be very very deadly. Um, and like I said, the move set that Escavalier now has in Sword and Shield, just the addition of stuff like close combat and Razor Shell, um, it makes it a lot better in a draft league in particular. It makes it a Pokemon that you can tailor to your matchups very very well. It has a lot of offensive tools that it can go with. Um, this team also has Anthony touched on the Dragon Fairy Steel core. This team has with Dragapult, Sylveon, Escavalier. All of those Pokemon are very solid Pokemon, and they're pretty well rounded. Maybe with the exception of the double fire weakness on the Escavalier, which can be overcome, especially if you maybe if you go for a Max Geyser and you're slower than your opponent's fire Pokemon, can get a little bit tricky against a Torkoal or something like that because you're going to be speed tying with that. But um, overall, these Pokemon are very well rounded. None of them are just bulky walls with no damage output. None of them are just glass cannons that are going to go down in one shot. Um, they're very 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 well rounded and they can work very well together. This may be our favorite Fairy Dragon Steel core in the draft. We debated about this one. It was hard to really decide, but it's clearly in the top three in our eyes, um, along with the one that we have on our draft. We're a little bit biased there, but we do think it's a pretty good Fairy Dragon Steel core, and also the one on the SoCal Skarmories with the Gudra, Comfey, and Mr. Mime for double fairy types, and they have Lucario as well. So, but this is a very very solid Fairy Dragon Steel core. We love those ones, and Liepard especially paired with that Dragapult and Sylveon, um, should be pretty good. And then they also have a few different self-activating weakness policy strategies. The most obvious of which is of course Colossal and Dragapult. It's an obvious strategy, but it's one that kind of pigeonholes a lot of other teams into prepping specifically for that because you can't just fake out that Dragapult unless you have Kangaskhan. I don't think anybody drafted Kangaskhan, so there's no faking that thing out. Um, you cannot beat that with redirection because Surf is just spread damage. Um, you know, it's very very fast. So you can put a scarf on something to outspeed the Dragapult, but unless it has something, so that scarf Pokemon has like a weird, multi-hitting move, you're not always going to be able to get through that Dragapult because a lot of the time you're going to see Focus Sash on those Surf Dragapults next to the Colossal. So it's a difficult one to get around, even if you know exactly what you're going up against. There are clearly ways to beat it, um, but it can be tough. It sort of pigeonholes you into prepping a certain way. They also have a couple of uh, more traditional priority hitting self-hitting weakness policy activation strategies. Merrill, of course, does get Aqua Jet if you're brave enough to put a Merrill onto the field, and then of course they could Sucker Punch or Quick Attack their own Dragapult with that Liepard and Sylveon respectively. So those are things you have to watch out for. They're things you have to prep for. Um, you might want to lead some kind of redirection to prevent one of those three ladder strategies. But then, in that case, you might end up being weak against the Surf Dragapult next to Colossal. So um, it's having those different strategies on this team, along with a few other different kinds of offense, is it's going to make it a little bit more difficult to prep for, even if you kind of know what to expect from certain pairs.
Yeah, so getting into the cons in this, the biggest thing, obviously, we touched on it, is having no redirection in a Dynamax format. Um, we touched on the fact that they don't have a lot of bulk. I'm sorry, it's not that their Fairy Water Grass Core may not be the bulkiest or may not be the most frail, but they're also, because of that, benefit most from having redirection because it's the difference of Sylveon getting 3 hits off because they have a redirector or only getting 2 hits off. And that could be a huge difference maker when you're talking about heavy hitting Pokemon like Sylveon, like a Escavalier, like the Dragapult, to be able to get a few more hits off just because you were able to sacrifice a redirector. So I think not having that really, really hurts it. And I think, it's something that we hope that they're going to be able to address in the transaction period in the next couple of weeks because this team does have a lot of potential and could very easily vault its way up to being an A tier team if they just make a couple of picks and they can figure that out in these first 2 weeks of the season. You have 2 games. You figure out, okay, as we were prepping, what had no chance of coming out. As we look forward, what has no chance of coming out. Let's go and try and grab. I mentioned Tangela. Let's go and try and grab something like that. There are other ways that you can get around having that. Um, the next one is limited speed control for a lot of these mid range Pokemon. And basically, when we say these mid range Pokemon, it's basically just Toxtricity. Uh, everything else is just so on the other end of the spectrum on a lot of these things. Dictrio's fast. Colossal is relatively fast once you get that steam engine going off. Um, it's you have the Musharna that's just slow. The Escavalier is just slow. The Liepard is on the faster end. So you would have liked to see a little bit more middling speed things other than just that G Max Toxtricity that's just there. And you just don't have a lot of speed control options for those things. I mean, I guess the Airstream with Dragapults can be nice.
Right. Malamar is middling speed as well. It's in the low 70s, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, it's in the low 70s. So those two together, Malamar is just, it's one of those things where if you're not ready for it, it will definitely take you down. But it's so easy to prepare for just in general. You throw a bug type move, so there a decent amount of things get U-turn. And as long as you make sure, all right, man, just don't even let it get a superpower off. Let's just take it down right away. It's not going to take very many resources. Let's just take care of it.
It's also harder to use it without redirection as well.
Yeah.
And it actually doesn't even have any resistances. It's immune to psychic, but
Yeah.
it doesn't resist anything. So you can still hit it pretty hard with kind of almost any neutral hit that you want.
Yeah, so that kind of sucks. But the main thing, honestly, is the redirection, and then going back down is their first pick Dragapult isn't as supported as it needs to be because of the fact that it doesn't have redirection. Um, I like the Liepard pick, I really do, but I wonder if they we have to go back and check the sheet, but if they had a chance to grab Togetic, that would have really been a good pick there. I know the Potatoes picked it in the third round as well, so it really comes down to I think where they were at in the draft because they could have got sniped there just a couple picks away.
I
But
think the Talonflames were just a little bit before.
yeah,
Potatoes.
I would really like because I think you can pick up life. I think you can go Liepard, Escavalier, Musharna, uh, in that same order right after that. And then you just decide to not grab one of these B tiers like Malamar, like Toxtricity. I think that you bump your team up a little bit if you do that. So that basically is the Talonflames report card. I think that they have a lot of potential here. A couple of trades in the transaction periods could really turn this team around and make it an A tier team, but really not having redirection hurts it. But it has a lot of threats.
It does.
So, all right. So after that, we are going to be talking to, or actually, no, we're not going to be talking to the Lava Ridge Raiders. We thought we were going to get them on schedule, but we were not able to. So we'll come back and we'll just talk about them instead. See you then.